Well, Walter's here. He's gonna, I guess, broach this topic that we're looking for. I don't know. Hopefully, reconciliation and not combat. Go ahead.
Why won't she just stop? Does she think she's better than the game? Can't she just be more grateful? Can't she be more graceful? Thank you. I mean, it's an opportunity not a lot of people get. She's making millions of dollars playing games. Why does she have to throw temper tantrums? These are the things that just 2 years ago and throughout her career we've heard about Serena Williams. Is she just not passionate? Doesn't she just hate to lose? Across all sports, women face this problem. Female athletes are constantly judged, made to feel less than and expected to lose or win. You just sit the hell down. Be quiet, shut up, and show no emotion. These problems stem at the root of a male-dominated entertainment society and the belief that women are not equal to men. But let's be honest, for more than a minute, women in all walks of life are faced with these things. If a woman is motivated, they're bitchy. If they file a grievance, all they do is complain. If they're unable to handle pressure, they can't handle the job because they're not a man, etc., etc., etc. But when we transpose that with race, as we saw this past week at the Australian Open, it's especially painful reminder of the grief that people of color, especially women of color, must endure. Sablenka threw her racket to the ground and cursed her, and it was dismissed in the heat of passion. And I'm certain that no one has even heard who she was. Don't know her name, and we have heard of it nothing further. Serena was fined $17,000 and ostracized 2 weeks after the event. But we barely know this young lady's name. And you're just the background. What do we collectively think the problem this is? And better, how do we work to eradicate these micro and macroaggressions that women must endure in the workplace? Personally, me, I was a big sexist, right? My wife checked me on it so many times it's ridiculous. And she said, well, Walter, when you take the word woman and switch it out with black, how do you feel? And as I applied that to just about every single situation that's here, it's something that women face, that black people face, and culturally we have to do a better job of handling. So how do we propose to fix the issue? Is it just a man's responsibility? Is it just society's responsibility? Or do we need to force the issue down someone else's throat that we must agree to?
Team identity politics here. Whenever there's an issue concerning a historically disadvantaged or marginalized minority, the key is always getting representation of those historically disadvantaged and marginalized minorities. Will that be the cure-all to it? No. But it generally tends to make things better. So the problem that you're talking about, and I like how there's definitely intersectionality, right? Race and gender and how it's like there. I'm not sure if it was the New Yorker or the New York Times that wrote about it in the context of Kamala Harris when she got it, and like that she got it. Generally, it's because critics, like the press, the media, it's overwhelmingly white and male. So like it's gonna change like whatever the prevailing point of view, at least from where it starts, is always gonna be from that perspective. So until you get more women, more black people, more gay people, more whatever group that's going out into positions of power, then it's going to something that like you have to treat like the white people, like you just have to constantly check for. And that becomes tough because it becomes incumbent upon people to right wrongs that aren't necessarily perceived to be wrong because it's a group that's in the minority. So if you're talking about Serena Williams and how she's treated like tennis-wise, well, the WTA is white, the tennis press is white, the general press is white, and it's overwhelmingly male. So until we can make changes there, it has to be when somebody says some shit about Serena Williams, somebody said on my Facebook page, and I had to go, into it with them. Like you just have to check it, like kind of sort of what your wife did with you. But that's It's not an answer that makes you feel good because it's like, damn, like that's like, trying to climb a mountain, but really that's what it is.
Yeah, it's like her shit is like, it's like an amalgamation of racism and sexism, just all boiled up into one. And
femininity, like whatever that means or whatever.
And people just flat out jealous.
Yeah. And I was reading for our fucking assignment, Quasi, and it's just like, our media landscape and our society in general, like, is like oligarch. What the fuck is that word? Let me Google real quick. I'm sorry. It's basically oligopoly. It's controlled by like few white men and all with similar interests, and that shit. And as a country, we're unique in the fact that we don't our relationship with the media is we think it's innocuous and there's no ideology behind it. Like, it's just entertainment, but that shit feeds into our assumptions and our values that never, and it's difficult to question those with traditional logic. And so I was reading about this concept of how to jar people or teach people in that way. It's called perspective by incongruity, where you juxtapose things that aren't usually congruent to challenge people's belief systems or norms. And I was thinking of the perfect example of that is, remember A Time to Kill, when Vance was giving his last statement to the jury, and close your eyes and imagine the rape and abduction, blah blah blah. Now open them. Now imagine she's white. It's that kind of thing. Like, I think we need that on like a mass scale in this country, but people are so unwilling to face that shit and deal with it. It's like daunting,
No, that's fine. That's really good. The idea of how we perceive things and who at least plants that seed. As far as the perception goes, is huge. It's definitely huge.
And our relationship with media literacy, like we don't have any, pretty much, like other Western, and it benefits those at the top for us not to have it, because they're continue to get pushed and accepted. Some of those ideologies are even accepted by the Black community, especially with the patriarchal aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. So Sean, like you talking a couple things. One thing that comes up is that Serena in tennis is operating in a mostly non-American context, right? So she's operating in Europe and other places where like their understanding of like Black Americans and racism in this country it's crazy how like when she went to French Open and she experienced racism there, Wimbledon she experienced stuff, even the U.S. Open, which is tennis is a place where I think what Serena and Venus have represented is so powerful because it's thinking about how do you break down the patriarchy in the midst of this like the racism that exists there. And the second point I would make is that while Serena in this space of tennis, right? I mean, many would argue that she's the greatest athlete of all time, like given her championship, etc. But when I think about like what it takes to break down this patriarchy, I'm reminded of the poet Audre Lorde, right? She had that piece where she talked about like the master's tools, whatever dismantle the master's house, or something like that, right? And that I think that like a lot of when I teach my students about feminism, that's a point that if as a woman, right, if you're trying to achieve equality, trying to achieve some kind of just some ability to be seen by men as equals, right? Doesn't that require that you're at some level like emulating that masculine like power structure, right? Like that's the whole lean in piece, right?
Acceptance within the structures as they currently exist. It's almost legitimizing the structures that exist, right?
Right. And that's to me is interesting because like Serena, as powerful as she is, I think she would be the first. If she'd be the first one to tell you that I'm limited by the structures in which I operate, right? This Eurocentric, white-centric sport that I play in, right? That we Arthur Ashe, I think maybe there's certain people who have risen up, but I think she is such an important case. I think in terms of understanding how patriarchy works. I'll stop there. Let's meet you all.
No, that's legit.
The hardest part, I guess, for me is I begin to apply that big deal knowing that she gets paid 15% less than her coworkers and the people who came into work at the same time as she did. But why? Is it because she was less educated? No, she graduated magna cum laude from Thomas Jefferson University. You know, but is it because she was just willing to accept the fact that they're going to pay her $200,000 a year to do her job, and no one in her family has ever had it before? Where me, when I apply to a job, the first offer I always reject. You know, what if I don't get something else? Well, is it something innate that women have to just accept the bullshit that they're getting from their employer or from society? Or is there something that we can do to help educate women, young women in particular, to not accept that type of bullshit from society at large? Kind of like you said, they're innovation, and so more people in place to help bridge the gap, to stand there and bridge the gap in the meantime.
Yeah, it's gotta be, and we should probably, I'm cognizant, I want to let people on the podcast get involved with talking about women's issues, sports, really dominated. But so we have so I'm not teaching it this year just because there are no girls in my class. But last year I taught feminism also as far as in the context of Harvard Business School case studies and like management and like when women have to go through like with and as managers. I can tell you that how it works now, at least within corporate America, but within the workplace, is largely male, like boards, largely male, like human resources want to have elevate certain women and hope that those women just like bring other women with them, and it doesn't necessarily work out that way. Most of those women who are like on chosen is what we talked about the other day. Most of those women who advance in that corporate or professional structure are ones who know how to play the game within those existing structures that probably aren't the best for women in the first place. So being able to advance in that type of environment isn't necessarily like a boom for equality for women or chances for women in that environment. It's more or less like, okay, she knows how to play this game. The Bumble CEO is a great example of that, right? Oh, she was a co-founder of Tinder, right? Yeah. And of course, it was just a super toxic male like workplace, right? Like dating these sluts, and then so she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like left, sued them for like a toxic workplace. They gave her a small settlement, right? But a bunch of shares, right? They gave her like $1 million and she got shares of Tinder. Right. And then she started Bumble, right? And Bumble is the exact opposite, right? Bumble is the women have to make the first move. I've never used a dating app in my life, so I don't know. But I know like that's the one where like women make the first move. I did. She's like the first self-made billionaire that's taking a company public. 31. But yeah, that's like an example. She's for white though, so it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. But as far as that sexism thing is concerned, it's still there for sure.
I literally wrote this piece up just for ladies to talk. Not talk, I really got to
No, I think that the issue with Serena is that what makes it special is that hers was on such a more public scale, first of all. The character of her, I mean, kind of like making her look animalistic, making her look larger than she is, more unattractive. That brings into play racism a lot more as well. And that's for everyone to see, and they're saying it's okay. Because look at what we did to this white woman. We didn't say anything. Blink of an eye. But with Serena, it's an issue, and she must be fine. So it's a little different than when you're in the workplace, in my opinion.
Yeah, she's like the poster child for that vitriol. Dark skin,
right,
bigger, muscular. So she gets like the worst of it. It's like, yeah, that's like an ideal case study in how she's dealt with in society. Who's the white girl who sucked? Who made
Sharapova. She's dominating. And then Sharapova's like, she's like 6'4", 6'5". And it's like, oh, like she's like the pretty feminine. Like, she's a bigger giant than Serena. But no one never going that way, right? Never going that way, right? She got all the photos, she's the model, she's like, well, but to each his own though.
I'm saying she's the one that took
Yeah, she's the juicer. Yeah, she was juicing. And it still lost. And now she's dating. I think she's probably moved on to that second life or whatever.
married, having babies, the way you want women to be anyway.
Right, and like Sharapova is like, that's what, you know, the tennis press want. You know, that's what Nike, like that's the image they want to do. And what's also interesting is that Serena, you know, she'll complain with umpires. She'll complain with calls. And she remember, like, it was, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago in the French Open. Maybe it was Wimbledon, just hated on over that. Right?
Yeah.
Right? Whereas like John McEnroe was like celebrated for that, right? So it's like, right? You know, the double standard. We know this, right? When black folks are in a law firm or in many settings, right? We know this double standard exists, but it's, I think it's important that we see it writ large and that we call it out, right? I think that's the thing is that
you gotta be vigilant doing that.
Yeah, folks can't see it, or folks choose to see it. They choose not to see it a lot of times.
They choose not to, I think, because of cognitive dissonance. It makes them uncomfortable to think that they are actually racist. Things. I mean, the world doesn't like it when women speak up. I mean, that's the reason why Donald Trump became president in the first place. I feel like, again, the first time around, never would have been our president.
Yeah.
And then people don't like when black people speak up, so you put those two together, a black woman. We should just be grateful that she's not somewhere being a cook. I mean, I really think that's how a lot of people think, and that's why the world, well, not the world, but the United States specifically, and the media kept on Serena.
Right, no, that's true, Autumn. What always trips me out is that how many women still voted for Trump. Like that's like
misogyny is so like prevalent in society that even the most, progressive of us still have a little bit of it.
Right.
So we have to be aware and shut it down. I mean, because you don't have to be a man.
Yeah, those two things are like, they're such a part of the default position of our country. Like this was like equality is what it's supposed to be. Like racism is over here. Like we treat this like it's the middle. You know what I mean? Like we're super racist, super sexist, but it's normal. It's
I mean, look at
that's the way it is.
As the celebration of Rush Limbaugh goes on, like I hear you guys talking, I'm like, yeah, that's probably right. Huge racist, sexist, homophobe, right? Like what he was.
Some on Twitter, which I wasn't too mad at, bro.
No, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I'm too old to go too hard at like Rush Limbaugh dying. Like, I'm not gonna go out of my way to be like, I hate his fucking guts. But like, I shed no tears. Like,
I mean, the damage was done. Damage was done.
Everybody has their time to go.
That's right.
Oh well.
Right.
Yeah, they were doing the Chicago shit with him. Like, smoking on Limbaugh tonight. The Limbaugh.
Like, Bobby and you, Walter, were saying how this topic, like, with women, were not participating as much. I can only speak for myself. We get over and over and over again, and a lot of people don't listen to it, so things are falling on deaf ears. So I personally like to sometimes just sit back and let men figure it out. No, he didn't figure it out, man.
there's a lot of
It's Bobby's point, like women who stay in those environments and succeed often just kind of slide into the norms or accept them.
You have to. One of the guys, women that I noticed a lot with men, I mean, I've worked in corporations my entire life, the women that usually climb up, yeah, they have a tendency to fit in with the guys.
On that Ally McBeal shit.
Yeah.
It's a very similar process to black folks, right? You have to erase part of yourself. If you want to exist in a
got
way, in an Ivy League school, in a law firm, in a Wall Street firm, you got to erase part of yourself. You have to, right? You have to.
It's so. I mean, this is so prescient. I wish these ridiculously immature high schoolers that I teach would listen to this conversation. I'm like, this is all stuff we're going over in class, guys. Just back.
The thing with high school students is that even though they don't seem like they're listening, they are absorbing and they are listening. It seems like it's going into one ear and out the other, but with kids that age, you definitely are making an impact. And if they've never heard things like this before, I mean, give them a
I already have. Our last two case studies in econ. The first one talks about minorities who whiten their resumes, changing names, removing affiliations. They get more callbacks and more jobs than those who don't. Black people tend to remove affiliations that they're with or change, like where, like they'll highlight some schools they went to and not others. Or they'll go to a point where they'll change like their address so people won't know, like if they're applying locally to a place, that they're from like a certain neighborhood. Asian people generally change their name. And not only just because of the Asian name, they get it because of the name, and they also get it because it's automatically assumed that they don't speak good English.
Mm-hmm.
So I had them make a resume for those of the kids who didn't have a resume, and they could use mine as a guide. And then I had them whiten a resume also. And we talked about what they had to think about when they were whitening their resumes. So people were like, yeah, like I like hiking, kayaking, fishing. I was like, that might, like, okay, James Andrews, you might be a white guy. Yeah, like Andrew Jacobs, you could be a white guy. Like we talked about names, like went around like whose name could be what. And it's like Julian Reese, you could be a white person. Yeah, it's like Kyrie. What about you, Kyrie Stain? It's like, no, you're not. You're black.
that's privilege. I mean, not having to think about changing your resume.
Yeah.
Your resume is a form of privilege. So just imagine what women have to go through when applying for a role. Like I can say with a company that I applied for a position and got the job. And when I got the job, the person I was working with was like, I fought so hard to get this job. I really liked you. My manager wanted to go with someone else. He was like you, had a law degree, pretty much just kind of fit in line with like the typical white male that works at a corporation as an analyst. But the thing that worked out for me is that the person I was working with was a woman, and our manager at least told her like, well, you're gonna have to work with this person every day. You need to make a choice. It's gonna be honor with other. I ended up getting a job because it just so happened that a woman got to make the decision.
Yeah.
And this person were equally qualified. You just gotta get the black guy because he can have haircuts.
And that was the second case study that we worked on, the latest one. And it talks and piggybacks on that all, and it goes to what you were saying, Luke, about how it's hard on minorities in those companies. For minorities and women, is you gotta have like a bunch of things work out for you. And you gotta be patient, because once you get an entry level, white people who end up in executive level positions, they're fast tracked. Black, even minorities and women, even those who end up in executive level positions, still aren't fast tracked, just like minorities and women who don't, and white people who don't. So they're basically everybody's in that same bucket except for white men. Once you get to stage 2 and stage 3, which is like middle management, and then upper level executive management. School, you gotta go laterally a bunch of times so you can build confidence in you and things like that. Walter ran a division, like he can tell you that also. Like a lot of times you got to go to school. Sometimes you have to be willing to do what professionally would be considered taking steps backwards, just to get that confidence and enough people who are going to be overwhelmingly white in this organization to be like, yeah, like, you know, Autumn can do all of these things or whatever. So
hard.
You got to be shrewd in a situation.
You have to be likable. They have to. A lot of times it boils down to, do they look at you as someone who they would want to hang out with on the weekend?
Yeah.
Like, you're competent enough to do this job, but do I want to hang out with you? Like, I had a guy interview me once for a job. Well, no, it was when I worked for Pramal. It was a contract position, just a contract position. I was there for like not quite a full year. This man, head of the legal department at the time, came from Europe to interview me. I'm like, I don't understand why this is so necessary, but whatever. So we do the interview, and at the end of the interview, he's like, you know, whenever I hire someone, I have to make sure they pass my beer test. And I talked about some of my other podcasts we used to do. I'm like, what's the beer test? He was like, well, I compare, you know, how good your resume is, I care about this, I care about that. If at the end of the interview, I don't look at you as somebody I want to sit down and have a beer with. And he looked at me as someone who he could have a beer with, because I did get it, but I'm like, what?
The higher you go, it goes from like the beer test to can I call you nigga to your face test? Like it's
exactly. How much shit you doing?
Exactly, and a lot of times I think I have, you know, I mean, you know, I have like my regular voice and I have my professional voice. Sometimes they're the same, but I think a lot of times, like, I've gotten my foot in the door because of my name, number one, and because of how I sound. Because there have been plenty of times I've gone into an interview and they're like, Autumn Woodland. I'm like, right here.
All of you guys are solid. Like all of you guys could be white people with the name.
Right, that's what
Dawn Woodland, Autumn Woodland, Nicole.
I'm
yeah, all of y'all could be white. Oh, you go.
White man, though.
I whitened up my name.
Sean whitens up a little bit.
If you go, that's how you would whiten it up. Like Rashawn becomes Sean. Sean Woodland could be white.
Sean Woodland ain't no nothing.
Sean Woodland's a Negro.
Sean Woodland is Irish.
There's no doubt about that. We have anything else? What's going on? This was pretty good, Walter. Almost 20 minutes of this. All right.